A free bird sleeps on the back of the wind and floats downstream to the caronans and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But the birds that stalk down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bar of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing.
The cage bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown but long for still, and his tone is heard on the distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on the down bright cloud, and he names the sky his own.
But the cage bird stands on the grave of dreams, his shadow shouts and the nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The cage bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown but long for still, and his tone is heard on a distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom.
The analysis of stanza 1. The first 4 lines of this poem symbolize a free life like a bird without a cage, like a bird that can fly and go anywhere without having to think about where the final destination will be. In this poem, the speaker complicates the earlier graceful image of the bird by mentioning that the free bird of liberty gives permission to claim ownership of something that does not belong to it. Poetic device in stanza 1. The first one, allusion. The third one is pathetic fallacy. It is dares to claim the sky. Fourth is repetition. And then we got enjambment. The analysis of stanza 2. The second stanza of the cage bird introduced the bird of the cage from the title of the poem. The story of this cage bird is different from that of a free bird, where the cage bird does not have freedom like other birds. This stanza just establishes the juxtaposition. A free bird can fly and jump at will, and so free that it feels it can claim the sky, while a cage bird cannot fly or even see through its bars. The cage bird continues to poetic metaphor, which is expanded and can be understood as a representation of marginalized groups. The speaker concludes the stanza by telling the reader that, as a result, in intolerable condition, the cage bird opened its throat to sing. Although the stage of the cage bird was quite grim, the cage bird began to make music. This may convey a sense of hope, or that the bird has found a coping mechanism that relieves some of its pain and suffering. Poetic device in stanza 2. The first one, allusion. The second one is assonance. The third one is refrain. The fourth one is pathetic fallacy. The fifth is repetition. Sixth is enjambment.
Stanza 3. The third stanza returns to the free bird, further reinforcing the distinction between a free bird and cage bird in the reader's mind, that the cage bird's song can be heard from a distance, again giving the impression that perhaps there is hope for the cage bird's situation. If the bird's song of suffering is loud enough to be heard from far away, it could mean that someone may heard it and possibly assist the bird in some way. There are some poetic devices in stanza 3. The first one is allusion. The second one is alliteration. The third one is rhyme scheme. The fourth one is symbol. Next one is refrain. Next one is imagery. Next one is repetition. The last one is enjambment. Stanza 4. The fourth stanza returns to the perspective of the free bird. The speaker continues to explain the free bird's life, while the cage bird sings its song for freedom. The free bird is focused on the comparative calm of the trade winds as they pass through the sighing trees. In line, the fat worms waiting on the down bright cloud, It shows that the free bird is able to think ahead to the food it will eat and the winds it will ride, but the caged bird suffers and only able to sing. There are some poetic devices in stanza 4. The first one is allusion. The second one is repetition. The third one is alliteration. The last one is imagery.
Stanza 5 analysis. Here, juxtaposition of the caged birds and the free bird's experiences, as the speaker again describes the caged bird's suffering. The caged bird stands on a grave of dreams, which demonstrates an utter loss of hope. The haunting image of a grave of dreams evokes the mass killings associated with slavery and racism in America. The speaker then explains that the bird's shadow shots on a nightmare scream, capturing how the caged bird's suffering is so profound it's even present during sleep. Lines 27 till 28 are parts of the poem's extended metaphor. It can create the deep emotional pain that this is experienced by the African American community as the result of their centuries-long oppression. The caged bird's suffering is so intense that the bird cannot even escape briefly through sleep. This contrasts with the poem's descriptions of the free bird, whose freedom is depicted as being almost thoughtless. This stanza also has enjambments on the refrain of the poem begins in line 29 till 30. The allusion in this stanza is in line 30. There are also assonance in this stanza. This stanza also has a pathetic fallacy. Lines 27 till 28. A caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. Imagery also appears in lines 27 till 30 of the caged bird. In this stanza also appears a repetition. This stanza also contains alliteration in line 27, 28, and 30. Stanza 6 analysis. The sixth and final stanza of Caged Bird is a word-for-word repetition of the third stanza, thus functioning as a refrain, almost like the chorus of a song. The repetition of this stanza could be interpreted as representing the passage of time for the caged bird and by extension for the African American community. Because this poem is an extended metaphor for African American struggle against racism, the repeated stanza captures the feeling that suffering continues to repeat rather than end. In this stanza also appear refrain in lines 31 until 38. In this stanza also appears allusion. In this stanza also appears assonance in line 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, and line 38. The pathetic fallacy also appears in this stanza, in lines 31 until 34. It also appears in line 37 until 38. Repetition also appears in line 31, the caged bird. This stanza has enjambments and the end stops. Lines are in line 34 and still, and line 36 hill, and line 38 freedom. This stanza contains alliterations in line 35 and 36. So that's all for our poetry analysis of Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. Hope you guys liked the video and see you guys. Thank you.
So today in this video, we will read and analyze the poems. The title of the poems is Auto-Wreck by Carl Shapiro. It's quick, soft, silver bell, beating, beating, and down to dark, one ruby flare, pulsing out red light like an artery. The ambulance at top speed, fluttering down, past beacons and illuminated clocks.
Wings in a heavy curve, dips down and breaks speed, entering the crowd. The doors lap open, empty in light. Stretchers are laid out, the magnet lifted, and stowed into the little hospital.
Then the bell, breaking the house, tolls once, and the ambulance, with its terrible cargo, slightly rocking, moves away. As the doors, and afterthought, are closed, we are walking among the cups.
Who sweep glass and are large and composed? One is making notes under the light. One with a bucket dodges ponds of blood into the street and gutter. One hangs lanterns on the bricks that cling.
Empty hooks of locusts to iron poles. Our throats were tight as tourniquets. Our feet were bone with splint. But now, like convalescents intimate and gauge, we speak through silent minds and warn.
With the stubborn self of common sense, the germ joke, and the banal resolution, the traffic moves around with care. But we remain touching a wound that opened to our richest horror.
Already old, the question, who shall die, becomes unspoken with nonsense. For that in war is done by hands. Suicide has cause and stillbirth, logic, and cancer, simple as the flowers, blooms.
But this invites the occult mind, cancel our physic with a sinner, and spatters all we knew of the demon across the expedient and wicked stones. This poem was published in 1941, and the facts about Carl Safier, the writer of this poem, is first, Carl Safier was born in Baltimore, Maryland on 10 November 1913, and then Safier was Jewish and felt rejected by students at the University of Virginia. Well, the physical analysis is the word count is 259, and the line is 39, and the stanzas is 3. The stanzas are 3. The topic is a car crash. The theme is a major theme from Autorec is death. The author is exploring the random and illogical nature of mortality by constructing the car crash with other forms of death, such as wars, suicide, and stillbirth, and of course cancer, that are more understandable. Autorec is a lyric poem because it gives a description of an event and a reflection on it, but does not tell a story.
So I will continue to analyze the poems. There is confusing passage. We speak through slightly smiles and warn, and the second with the stubborn soul of common sense, and the third the grim joke at the banal resolution. And there is the vocabulary that I will explain what it is. So the first one, there is dodge. It is a verb, and it means to wash away with water. And second, there is convalescence. It is a noun, and the meaning is a patient who is recovering from an illness or the effects of medical treatment. And the third, there is gauge. It is an adjective, and it means lacking grace or tact in social situation or socially awkward. And the fourth, there is banal. It is an adjective, and it means boringly ordinary and lacking in ordinarity. So, and the fifth, there is occult. It is an adjective, and it means not capable of being understood by ordinary human beings. And there is dominant. It is noun, and it means a final part of story in which everything is made clear and no question or surprises remain. So I will tell you about poetic devices. For the first time, rhyme scheme is known, meter is known, alliteration is soft, silver, bell beating, bell breaking, down, dark, light, like, dips down, tight, tourniquets, sickly, smile, stubborn, so. The repetition is beating, floating down, dips down, rocking, slightly rocking. And the imagery of the poems is pulsing out red lights like an artery, one with a bucket dodge. Ponds of blood, simple as a flower blooms, stretches are light out the maglet lifted. And there is personification. No, goblok. There is no personification, and the parallel structure is one is still, one with a bucket, one hangs, one throat were tied, our feet were bound, and cancer, and spatters who shall die. So the hyperbole, ponds of blood, and the allusions, there is none. There is onomatopoeia. It's silver bell beating, and this melee in this poem is like convalescence, innocent and gauche, red light like an artery, throat tight as a tourniquet, cancer simple as a flower. And there is metaphor. So the metaphor in this poem are the stubborn soul of common sense. Lanterns are described as empty hubs of locusts. And the irony is a grim joke. So the effect, and I will explain it, that Shapiro used simile and metaphor to emphasize the fantasy-like and wild setting of the outer rack. He describes the light as pulsing out like an artery, contrasting the red light emitted from an ambulance to the blood of the artery. The idea that light is spurted out like blood is abstract and bizarre. In addition to that simile, Shapiro describes the wreckage as empty hubs, locust-like in the devastation they cause. This depiction of the outer wreck is extravagant and almost unreal. Using figurative language, Shapiro reinforced the theme of death as being bizarre and perplexing. So that's our analysis to this poem. I hope you like it and watch it till the end. And
I Thank You God for Most This Amazing Day by Edward Astlin Cummings. I thank you God for most this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees, and the blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes.
I who have died am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birth, day of life and of love and wings, and of decay. Great happenings illimitably earth.
I'm gonna read the next quatrain and a couplet. How should tasting, touching, hearing, breathing, and lifted from the no of all nothing. Human merely being taught unimaginable you. Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened.
First quatrain literary devices. In the first line, I, lowercase, shows humanity. Capitalized U refers to God. Also in the first line, for most this amazing, especially most this, shows unique word order as it is non-traditional syntax. Next, there's personification. An idea or a thing is given human attributes and or feelings, or is spoken as if it were human. In the second line, greenly spirit of trees shows that trees are pictured to have spirits, which in reality it is not. Next is symbolism, a literary device that stands for or suggests something else. It represents something beyond literary meaning. Trees in the second line can symbolize everything that is going on in life, as leaping and greenly illustrate the rebirth of nature and the poet's own personal spirituality. Moving on, we have imagery, the use of figurative language to evocate a sensory experience or create a picture with words for a reader. For the leaping greenly spirit of trees and a blue true dream of skies, it is show imagery of sign. Next, there is assonance, the repetition of similar vowel sounds takes place in two or more words in proximity to each other within a line. In the third line, blue true have the sounds of vowel U. Next is metaphor. It is means of asserting that two things are identical in comparison rather than just similar. Comparisons without the expression use of like or as. In the third and fourth lines, for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. So everything describes as natural, infinite, and yes. Those lines also represent imagery of sign, and we could see repetition, which the same words are phrases in a literary work that can bring clarity to an idea and or make it memorable for the reader, as it is a repetition of which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. That's all for the literary devices in the first quatrain.
The second quatrains acknowledge the spiritual concept of reincarnation when the speaker declares, I have who died, am alive again today. Immediately he brings things back to earth by asserting, and today is the sun's birthday, as every day it course. The speaker celebrates life and love and wings, incorporating spirituality. Along with nature, the writers tell us that God created an amazing nature in our life. The literary device is coming spirituality experience through the sonnet. I thank you God for most this amazing. The sonnet is clearly an innovative variation of Shakespeare's sonnet. It consists of 3 quatrains and a couplet with an Elizabeth rhyme scheme of ABAB, CDCD, EFEF, and GG.
I'm gonna analyze the meaning. The third stanza illustrates the abilities we, as a mere human being, possess, and asks the question of how anyone can doubt God's existence after experiencing life and His creations. And the meaning of the first line on the third quadrant, how should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, means how can a human being reflects the greatness of God's able to use all 5 of their senses to experience and be witness to the beauty in this world. And the next line is "and lifted from the no of all nothing, human merely being." The speaker here writes that God is yes. So this word is normally used in periods of excitement and implies truth. And the opposite of yes is the no, which is of all nothing. So this opposition infers that those who do not dwell in the state of awe and wonder are not living in the perfect truth. And the next line is "doubt unimaginable you." This means God is unimaginable to the mere human. And the next is a couplet. "Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened." In this concluding couplet, the phrases "ears of my ears" and "eyes of my eyes" to indicate senses far beyond what we can perceive in this physical world, and is a spiritual way of seeing and hearing. And now I'm gonna explain the literary devices in the third quadrant and a couplet. So the first I got here's the rhyme, precisely internal rhyme. Rhyme is when the vowel and final sounds of two or more words is identical. So the example here is "how should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing." As we know, the final sounds are identical in tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, and breathing. And the next is repetition. Repetition is when a word or phrase is used over and over again. For example, the line "ears of my ears awake and eyes of my eyes are open." So the word ears and eyes are repeated. So this is the repetition. And the next is personifications. Personification is giving human qualities to non-human things. And the example here is "ears of my ears awake," which is the word awake here is being personified because awake is human things.
The theme of the poetry is the speaker is thanking God for all that is positive in creation. The tone of the poetry is throughout the poetry that is revealed a slightly satiric tone. The ridiculed how the white man view the black race. Every stereotype that will be normally be meant to degrade those of the black race is turned into something that expresses their inner and outer beauty.
Structure of this poem. It is a sonnet, consists of 14 lines. As the stanza form, there are 3 quatrains, 4 lines in a stanza, and a couplet, 2 lines in a stanza. With the rhyme scheme: A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G G.
And now I'm going to jump to the summary. The poem reveals that Cummings not only believes in God but finds faith in the deity through the beauty of the incarnate world, which Cummings joyously celebrates in these verses. And in other words, Cummings believes in God because he can experience the world with his 5 senses and find it good. So Cummings thanks God for the everything in this world, because the poem thus illustrates that the poet is filled with gratitude for the natural world and for the God he believes created it. So the poet embraces the infinite, which is he calls yes, and finds nothing and despair but hope and happiness in the world around him. And also the poem shows that Cummings had at least moments of profound optimism, moments when he felt fully alive to the world, when the lines "the ears of my ears awake and the eyes of his eyes open." So he wonders how anyone who could experience the earth with his senses, tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, could doubt the existence of God. So That's all from me and from our group. Thank you.
I, being burned away and distressed by Edna Saint Vincent Millay. I, being burned away and distressed by all the needs and notion of my kind, I'm urged by your propinquity to find you a person fair and feel a certain zest to bear your body's weight upon my breast. So softly is the fume of life designed to clarify the pulse and cloud the mind. I'll leave me once again under the sense. Think not for this, however, the poor treason of my stout blood against my staggering brain. I shall remember you with love, or season my scorn with pity. Let me make it plain. I find this frenzy insufficient reason for conversation when we meet again. Hello everyone! Today our group is going to analyze the poem I, Being Born a Woman and Distressed. This poem was written by American lyrical poet and playwright Edna Saint Vincent Millay. She was born in February 22nd, 1892. She published this poem in her collection The Harp, Weaver and Other Poems in 1923. She won poetry prizes from an early age, including the Pulitzer Prize in 1923, and she went on to use the verse as a medium for her feminist activism. She was noted for her uninhabited lifestyle, forming many passing relationships with both men and women. The poet's background related to the poem itself that tells the poet's point of view and depiction as a woman in looking at our relationships. In this poem, Millay separates lust from rationality, even affection from women's point of view.
Now, I would like to explain about the theme in the poetry I, Being Born a Woman and Distressed. The theme of the poem is about sexuality and desire. Millay specifically considers the female perspective and the power of female sexuality in relation to love. Even as the poem speaker refuses to give in to her desire, she frankly acknowledges her physical lust without hesitation or shame. Indeed, the poem presents lust as something powerful and natural, or albeit frequently irrational. Now, I would like to explain about the meaning of the poem title. The meaning of the title brought by the poem's title, I, Being Born a Woman and Distressed, generally indicates the feeling and perspective of a person who has nature as a woman and running her life in various aspects. That sometimes causes a depressed and confusing condition in dealing with problems that are often faced by women, without exception in living a relationship. Now, I would like to explain the summary of the poem, I, Being Born a Woman and Distressed, by Edna St. Vincent Millay, describes the emotional frenzy that relationships can evoke in a woman and how one may walk away unpossessed. The poem begins with the speaker describing her own emotions when she is confronted with a potential lover. The man, just through his presence, is able to make her feel the notions of her kind. Her female biology makes her desire him whether her brains wants to or not. It is a feeling of zest she gets for the weight of him upon her. She knows from experience and from what she has been taught that sex is meant to be a way that a man comes to possess a woman. The overpowering emotions that come along with it can cloud the woman's mind until she cannot see or think straight. Many believe this is how it has to be, but it is not. In the final section, she describes how she has the power to walk away from any man she chooses. She can be with a man and then leave him. They have no emotional or mental connection. She is not made to be possessed. Now, I would like to explain the stanza, rhyme, tone, and matter of the poem I Being Born a Woman and Distress. I Being Born a Woman and Distress, also known as Sonnet 41 by Edna Stevenson Millay, is a Petrarchan or Italian sonnet that is divided into one set of 8 lines or octave and one set of 6 lines or sestet. The first 8 lines rhyme in a pattern of A B B A B B A, while the sestet rhymes is C D C D C D. And the tone of the poem is matter of fact tone, audacious or daring, scornful, fastidious or treating serious issues with deliberately inappropriate humor, mocking, ironic, arrogant, disinterested, and objective. And the matter of the poem is iambic pentameter, as is conventional of the sonnet form. Iambic pentameter is composed of 5 iambs poetic feet, consisting of an unstressed, stressed syllable pattern.
Identify symbol and figurative language. The first line directly addressed to an author, which means that she is being completely open and honest to herself, also emphasizes that this poem uses a female point of view. The word distress shows the woman being fragile, suffer, and helpless. The second line illustrates the author's feelings in contrast between needs and notions. The word needs refers to something one should do as a woman, while the word notions refers to her desires and urge for her freedoms, also a quality that reflects about the femininity. Moving on to the third and the fourth line. This line refers to her enthusiasm as a woman and talks to the lover that she cannot resist her sexual closeness, that makes she is really enticed by this man. Continued by the 5th until the 8th line, that indicates about sexual desires arise over the control and reflects on how falling in love may result in surrendering, which makes the woman struggle with herself, that influence her minds and can no longer think straight. It also tells us about the consequences of lust, that the word undone refers to her sexually and mentally unsatisfied. Next, the 9 and the 10 line about how the rejections of the strong desires. Although the woman has desires for physical contact with this potential lover, but she also has the ability and choices to say no. Next, the 11th line tells about how the woman declares that she has taken back control of the relationships from the lover, and the word season has the implication of the partner change for a new one. And the last consists of 3 lines, tells how the woman's feelings at the end of their relationships, which has no reasons to stay anymore. There is also some figurative language that is used in this poem, such as first, alliterations. Second is metaphor. It can be seen through the sentence form of life, which means the ups and downs of their relationships. Also, the cloud of mind that symbolizes the writer's mind is filled with dumps and cannot think clearly. The third is personification. The author uses the human characters to describe of how the stopped blood against and affected the woman. Number 4 is hyperbole, by the sentence urged by your propinquity to find your person right, is illustrating on how the feelings of desire to someone. Some offline also use injunction, which means without any punctuated pause and makes the readers curious to continue read.
Sonnet 106. When in the Chronicle of Wasted Time. When in the Chronicle of Wasted Time, I see descriptions of the fairest whites, and beauty making beautiful on rhyme, in praise of ladies dead and lovely nights.
Then, in the blazon of sweet beauty's best, of hand, of foot, of lip, of eye, of throat, I see their antique pen would have expressed even such beauty as she must learn.
So all their praises are but promises of these our time, all you prefiguring, and for the look, but with divining eyes, they had not skill enough your word to see. For we, which now behold these present days, had eyes to wonder, but lack tongues to praise. So now we move to the analysis about this poem. The first one is message. This poem has message. Beauty can never be put into words, and everyone has their own definition of beauty. Next, about the structure. This poem has 4 stanzas and has 14 lines. The rhyme are ABAB, CDCD, EFEF, and GG. And how about the rhythm? The rhythm is iambic pentameter, and this poem used regular verse.
I'll continue through the meaning of each stanza. The first stanza talks about the chronicles of the past, and the author tells that the lyrical voice mentions and encounters good depictions of the fairest whites. White refers to people, and it is an old term. Those depictions that the lyrical voice reads are of alluring people, and beauty making beautiful old rhyme, such as dead women and knights, in praise of ladies dead and lovely nights. Those lines set the scene of the sonnet and serve as introduction for the next quatrains.
In the second stanza, we know that the poet says he found in his love one beauty that the antique pen expressed in poetry. According to the poet, the hand, foot, lip, eye, and brow of his beloved show the same beauty as the ancient described. In other words, the old man praised a part of the body of beautiful people, and the poet's love one mastered this beauty.
In the third stanza, the poet explained that what people of the ancient time praised were prophecies and foreshadow of the poet lover. Her beauty was prefigured by them. They looked at her with divine eyes, yet they could not praise that beauty as they were lack of skills to do it. And then in the fourth stanza, and also the couplet, explain that people who live today have eyes and are able to see the beauty. They get amazed as well to it. However, they don't have enough words to praise that beauty. Figurative languages that are used in this poem from the first to seventh line is personification, which can be found in the third line that said, and beauty making beautiful old rhyme. And also in the seventh line, that said, "I see," their antique pen would have expressed. In the second line, we can find the imagery by the use of word see, which also appears in the seventh line.
Figurative languages which are used in the 8th to 14th line are simile. It is indicated by the use of s. And then there is metaphor. It is indicated by the use of r. And the next one is the word of looked is involved imagery. And the last one is in the line of had eyes to wonder but like tongues to praise. It is indicate the use of personification.
No Coward Soul is Mine by Emil Bronte. No coward soul is mine, no tremble in the words, storm, troubled superior. I see heaven's glory shine, and faith signs a quell or me from fear. O God, within my breast, Almighty ever-present deity, life that in me has rest, as I undying life have power in thee.
Vain are the thousand creeds that move man's heart, unutterably vain, worthless as withered weeds, or idless amid the boundless main. To waken, dove in one, holding so fast by thee infinity, so thoroughly anchored on the steadfast rock of immortality.
With wide embracing love, thy spirit animates eternal years, pervades and broods above, changes, sustains, dissolves, creates and rears. Thou art and men were gone, and suns and universe ceased to be, and thou wert left alone, every existence will exist in thee.
There is no room for death, nor atom that his might could render void, since thou art being and breath, and what thou art may never be destroyed.
About Emil Bronte. Emil Bronte was born in Thornton, Yorkshire, England in July of 1818. She was the fifth child born to the Brontes, and in 1821 her mother passed away from cancer. Emil Bronte spent most of her time in her home at Haworth, where she explored her passion for writing. She would go on to publish Wuthering Heights, and her sisters, Charlotte and Anne, with whom she shared siblings' pen names, would publish Jane Eyre and The Tenant of Whitefell Hall. While Wuthering Heights did not receive any kind of critical praise when it was published, it is now considered one of the greatest novels all of the time. And the main theme of this poem is spirituality. This poem shows how deep in the connection of the poet with God and her passion for God. It is about love and faith in God. No coward soul is mine. It indicates that there is no fear in her because she has God by her side. There is nothing to be afraid of since God is powerful. Analysis each stanza. No coward soul is mine. No tremble in the words, strong troubled superior. This stanza states that her soul is untroubled. It is not cowardly, nor does it tremble at the troubles of the world. It is because she has her faith in God. She sees heaven's glory shine, and it's protected from everything. The power of heavens is a part of her, and it arms her from fear. It is the only weapon or defense that she needs to make her way through her life.
So in the first stanza, she has her faith in God, and she sees heaven's glory shine, and is protected from everything. And the power of heaven is part of her, and it arms her from fear. And in the next stanza, he refers to the God has provided her with life, and that life within her is a representation of God's undying life. And in the next stanza, she also speaking about all the human that sometimes we follow religion such a creed, and she condemned this type of people who just follow the prices, or but they are not have any belief in God and not loving God, something like that. And she feel like being a believer without loving God is such a pain, and that is pointless. The fourth stanza, she would never be absorbed by her doubt or any that kind of fear. In the next stanza, of God that is present in the world is all powerful, and it's like embracing and through all the years of her life and create something that is always there, and she always have God within her. The fourth stanza, she would never be absorbed by her doubt or any that kind of fear. Next stanza, of God that is present in the world is all powerful, and it's like embracing and through all the years of her life and create something that is always there, and she always have God within her. Well, we move into the next stanza, the sixth stanza. When the world comes into an ending, there is no earth or moon, and neither the sun and the universe. All of this body, all of the existence in this world will cease to be. But nevertheless, God has not. He is always there, and His existence would hold that. And if we believe in God, we will never be ceased to be, or we will never be lost, even though the world is already crashed and disappear, something like that. And we move to the next stanza, the last one. In this stanza, she doesn't have any fear about that, and that has no power over her, and there is no atom of his might touch God's power, and God consumes everything and everyone, from every being to every breath, and she can never be destroyed even by something as seemingly powerful as that, because she has God by her side. So that makes her powerful and never be chased. That's all about the analysis structure, and we will move into the next section, which is the structure of this poem. So the structure of this poem is it has 7 stanza made up of 4 line stanza. So this is called as quatrains poem, and the rhyme of this poem has A-B rhyme in each stanza, and it's also iambic trimeter and pentameter. And the tone that has been used in this poetry is the tone of confidence and fearless. That is all from me. Thank you.
Now I'll discuss about figurative language. In the first stanza, not tremble in words from troubled peers. This is alliteration. This serves is support the concept that the speaker is not a coward. Also, this first couplet is a good example of Emily's delicate use of alliteration. In this case, the soft S sound, this helps to soften the image of storms, which is usually violent. One more obvious use of alliterations in the very last couplet. This is "see so art being and breathe." Again, the alliteration softened the poem, creating a mood of quiet admiration and wonder. And the other alliteration is in this line, "and faith shone equal, aiming me from fear." The movements heard on the treble faint, wordless as withered weeds. And the next one is simile. Faint are the thousand creeds, the movement's heart unutterably faint, worthless as wither weeds, or it is for the maze the boneless man. This is a simile. A cooperation between two distinctly different things is especially indicated by the word like or as. The use of word as and the particular simile used here give a praise a nice tone and also express Emily contempt for the faint man simile when referring to man. And the next one is metaphor. That word or express that in the latter usage denotes one kind of thing is applied to in distinctly different kind of thing without asserting comparison. Like this stanza, two wakened up in one, holding so fast by tie infinity, so surely unsure one, and the steadfast rock of immortality. So she used a metaphor that qualified God throughout the entire poem. Thus, Emily compares God to stronger things such as rock. The last one is repetition. There are a few cases of repetition, such as in the very first couplet, like word no, no coward soul is mine, and no tremble in the words from troubled spears, and word shine, I see heaven's glory shine, and faith shineth will army me from fear. And the next one is word life, life that in me has raised, as I undying life has the power in thee. And the word faint, faint are the thousand creeds that movements heard unutterably faint. Next is word fast, holding so fast by tie infinity, the steadfast rock of immortality. And next is word existence, every existence will exist in thee. And the last one is word thou art, since thou art being and breathe, and what thou art may never be destroyed. Message of the poem. In that era, women are perceived as a fool and coward, and Emily in her poem stated that there is no coward soul in her. This is such a picture of feminism energy. The poem begins with the speaker stating that she is untouched by fear, the love she has for God, and the power with which she has been bestowed due to that love make her unafraid of death. In nowadays era, the poem has messaged that God's love is without the limits. There is nothing that could happen to us or happen to the world that would eradicate that. That poem concludes with the speaker once more stating that although death is powerful, he, the death, is nothing against the strength of God.
Well, this is the ending of our discussion today. So as the representative of my team, my group, I'm gonna say thank you for all of your attention.
Sunset and evening star, and one clear call from me. And may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea, but such tide as moving seems to sleep, too full for sounds and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home.
Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark, and might there be no sadness of farewell when I embark.
For though from out our born time and place, the flood may bear me far, I have to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar.
Crossing the Bar is an 1889 elegiac poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson. The theme of Crossing the Bar is death. Tennyson says repeatedly that he doesn't want people to complain or be sad about their situation. The journey from life to death is described in this poem using the metaphor and sea voyage. It is written in Tennyson's advancing years when he was starting to think about death. Crossing the Bar is a 4-stanza poem that divided into sets of 4 lines, known as quatrains. These quatrains follow a consistent rhyme scheme of A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G A G A. The length of the lines are varied, but the first and third tend to be a bit longer than the second and fourth. The title of this poem is a metaphor. It is a figure of speech in which an implied comparison is made between the objects that are different. Crossing the bar is a metaphor of death. In the first line, in the first stanza, the sunset is accompanied by an evening star heralding the night. The first line represents imagery, which is used to make readers perceive things involving their 5 senses. Evening symbolizes death and the end of life. There is an alliteration in the second line, which is clear call, and also it is an announcement of the poet's departure from the present world to the next. In line 3, the poet hopes there will be no moaning of the bar when he moves towards the sea. It is a personification. Moaning in this line refers to the sound of the sea waves as they come crashing on the sandbar. The rhyme scheme is AB AB.
We move to the second stanza. The idea of the full tide suggests that the metaphorical ship being sailed is in the water. This is also a metaphor, which is the journey of life. There is also personification in the first line. He personifies the tide as if it can sleep like humans. The lack of sound and foam indicates that the vessel is in the deep sea. This might lead one to think that it isn't at the start of the journey, but near the end. In line 3, which is its journey from the boundless deep sea, the narrator is still referencing the tide as this seemed to be the theme for this stanza. It then continues to say it turns again home. This suggests that the tide is turning, but it isn't going to carry them back to shore. There is an adjustment in between line 3 and 4, which occurs when a line is cut off before its natural stopping point. The rhyme scheme is CD-CD.
So I'm going to analyze stanza 3. The first line is imagery, which helps create a visual picture of the surroundings. Twilight symbolizes the last moment of the life or old age. The use of evening bell evokes image the funeral toll often associated with death. The next line would certainly lend credence to the idea as following the bell there is darkness. The poet does not want people to make a good deal out of their death, as he expressed in the first stanza of Crossing the Bar, that they do not want sadness. They're passing to the other side of river to as embarking, and the rhyme scheme is EF. Okay, move to stanza 4. This stanza is almost like a summary, providing a condensed version of the narrator's journey from conception to death. When the poet talks about the flood, I think this is another way to describing the endless sea, which is a metaphor of the long road that the poet has taken and carried the poet towards their destination, which is death. Palette is a symbol of God who controlled his journey. Perhaps the poet wants to meet God. In this line, there is an alliteration, face to face. Crossing the bar is a metaphor that essentially means crossing over from life into death. It is also the title of the poem, ending on this line that gives it prominence, and the rhyme scheme is GA. Thank you.
Had we but world enough and time, this coyness lady were no crime. We would sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love's day. Thou by the Indian Ganges side shouldst rubies find. I by the tide of Humber would complain. I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse, till the conversion of the Jews. My vegetable love should grow vaster than the empires and more slow, and 100 years should go to praise thine eyes and on thy forehead gaze. 200 to adore each breast, but 30,000 to the rest. An age at least to every part, and the last age should show your heart. For lady, you deserve this state, nor would I love at lower rate. But at my back I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near, and yonder all before us lie, deserts of vast eternity. Thy beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing song. Then worms shall try that long-preserved virginity, and your quaint honor turn to dust, and into ashes all my lust. The grave's a fine and private place, but none, I think, do there embrace. Now therefore, while the youthful hue sits on thy skin like morning dew, and while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires, now let us sport us while we may, and now like amorous birds of prey, rather at once our time devour than languish in his slow trapped power. Let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball, and tear our pleasures with rough strifes through the iron gates of life. Thus, though we cannot make our sun stand still, yet we will make him run. Thank you.
To his coy mistress, had we but worlds enough and time, this coyness lady were no crime. We would sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love's day. Though by the Indian Ganges side, should rubies fine I by the tide of Humber would complain, I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse, till the conversation of the Jews, my vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow, and 100 years should go to praise thine eyes and on thy forehead gaze. 200 to adore each breast, but 30,000 to the rest. An age at least to every part, and the last age should show your heart. For lady, you deserve this state, nor would I love at lower rate. But at my back I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near, and yonder all before us lie, deserts of vast eternity. Thy beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing song, then worms shall try that long preserved virginity, and your quiet honor turn to dust, and into ashes all my lust. The grave's a fine and private place, but none, I think, do dare embrace. Now therefore, while the youthful hue sits on thy skin like morning dew, and while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires, now let us sport as while we may, and now, like amorous birds of prey, rather at once our time devour, than languish in his slow chaste power. Let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball, and tear our pleasures with rough strife through the iron gates of life. Thus, though we cannot make our sun stand still, yet we will make him run. Thank you.
to his coy mistress. Had we but world enough and time, this coyness lady were no crime. We will sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love's day. Though by Indian Ganges side shouldest rabbits find, I by the tide of Humber will complain, I would love you 10 years before the flood. And you should, if you please, reviews to the conversion of the Jews. My vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow. And 100 years should go to praise thine eyes, and on thy forehead gaze. 200 to adore each breast, but 30,000 to the rest. An age at least to every part, and the last age should show your heart. For lady, you deserve this state, nor would I love at lower rate. But at my back I always hear time swing, chariot hurrying near. And yonder all before us lie, desert of vast eternity. Thy beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble fold shall sound. My echoing song then warm shall try, that long preserved virginity, and your quiet honor turned to dust, and into ashes all my lust. The graves are fine and a private place, but none, I think, do their embrace. Now therefore, while the youthful hue sits on thy skin like morning dew, and while thy willing soul transpires at every pores with instant fires, now let us pour to us while we may, and now, like amorous birds of prey, rather at once our time devour than languish in his slow chapped power. Let us roll all of our strange and all our sweetness up into one bowl, and tear our pleasures with rough strife through the iron gates of life. Thus though we cannot make our own sun stand still, yet we will make him run.
When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has cleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charactery hold like rich garners the full ripened grain, when I behold upon the night-starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think, the love and fame to nothingness do sink.
This poem is categorized as a Shakespearean poem that has 14 lines, and it consists of 4 stanzas. It is 3-quartet and a couplet. Alright, let us start by defining the meaning of rhyme scheme. Well, rhyme scheme is the pattern of the sound or the rhyme that helps make a poem musical. It also helps establish the form. In traditional poetry, a regular rhyme aids the memory for recitations and gives predictable pleasure. Well, what is the rhyme scheme of this poem? Let's figure it out. This is the first stanza, as you can see. The word to be is rhyming with the word charactery, that they both are ended with the sound E and are considered to be the A. This is also happening to the word grain and grained. Both are ended by the sound ain't and considered to be the B. Well, the rhyme scheme for the first stanza is ABAB. Moving on to the second stanza, the word face is rhyming with the word trace, and the word romance is rhyming with the word chance. So, the rhyme scheme for the second stanza is CD. In the third stanza, the word hour is rhyming with the word power, and the word more is rhyming with the word shore. So, the rhyme scheme for this stanza is EF. The last but not the least, in the couplet, the word think and the word sink is rhyming. So, the rhyme scheme of this final stanza is GG. In conclusion, the rhyme scheme for the poem When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be by John Keats is ABAB, CD, EF, GG.
Now let's talk about the theme of this poem. The theme of When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be is fear of death. Based on the title, the speaker considers mortality and the possibility that death comes before the speaker has achieved everything that he or she hopes to in life. We can see in lines 9 and 10 that one of the main fears that appears by the thought of death is the possibility that the speaker may never look upon his or her beloved more. Next part is line-by-line analysis. Lines 1 to 2. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pain has gleaned my teeming brain. In the first line, the speaker describes moments when he or she fears of dying. And the second line is the continuation of previous sentence and reveals that the speaker isn't only fear of death, but a fear of dying before achieving something creative in his or her life. Lines 3 to 4. Before high-wheeled books in charactery hold like rich garners the full ripened grain. It is focused on the speaker's attention on writing, suggesting that the speaker's fear of dying before filling books with his or her own work and probably in the form of poetry. Lines 5 to 6. When I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance. It indicates that the speaker has such fears frequently. This emphasizes that the speaker's faith in his or her creative capacity. It also indicates that the speakers find a particular inspiration in the natural world. Lines 7 to 8. And think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chimes. In these lines, the speakers have a fear that he or she may not live long enough to trace the shadows of cloudy symbols in the sky. The speaker fears being unable to express the inspiration he or she finds in the natural world into poetry. Lines 9 to 12. And when I feel, fair creator of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love. It is explaining that when he or she actually feels, it connects the speaker's strong emotion with the physical beauty of his or her beloved. The speaker merely fears that he or she may never look upon thee more, whereas other fears in the poem from the possibility of dying before achieving the goals in the case of love, the speaker seems to view no point as a satisfactory time to die. The speaker refers to his or her beloved as fair creature of an hour. Lines 12 to 13. Then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think. In these lines, explaining that when he or she has fears of dying too early, the speaker feels as though on the shore or the wide world. This suggests that the speaker's anxieties are especially disconnecting, creating a fissure between the speaker and the world. Lines 13 to 14. And think, till love and fame to nothingness do sink. As the speaker imagines being alone on the shore of the world, he or she ponders the reality that love and fame to nothingness do sink. The speaker reveals the ways in which it is not merely romantic love, but love for the speaker's poetry and work that the speaker truly craves. However, in the face of death, the speaker ultimately accepts that love and fame nothingness do sink. The speaker may also accept that death is inevitable and that love and fame ultimately are nothing. Now let's discuss about the poetic devices. First is metaphor in lines 2 to 4. It describes a fear of dying before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, and before books hold like rich garners the full ripened grain. And in this case, the speaker implicitly aligns a pen with a tool capable of gleaning or reaping the grain from a harvest. Second one is imagery in line 4, line 5 to 6, line 8, and line 12 to 13. And the last poetic device that we found in this poem is the hyperbole in lines 12 to 13. The speaker uses hyperbole to describe his or her state of loneliness and despair. When the speaker has fears of dying, he or she explains that on the shore or of the wide world I stand alone. This is in part another metaphor. The speaker doesn't literally stand alone on a shore, but also hyperbolic since the wide world.
How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight for the ends of pain and either grace.
I love thee to the level of everydays, most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise.
I love with a passion put to use, in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seemed to lose. With my lost saints, I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. So, this is the analysis of the poetry. From How Do I Love Thee? Let me count the ways. The title is How Do I Love Thee? Let me count the ways. The poet's name is Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And the stanza consists of 3 stanzas, 2 quatrains, and 1 sestet. And the rhyme is used in octet is ABA, ABBA, and the sestet follows CD, 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 rhyme scheme. And the rhythm is lembic pentameter. and the stylistic device is anaphora. It refers to the repetition of the word or expression in the first part of some verses. The word I love thee is repeated to emphasize the author's feelings of true love. And the theme is love. The author implied to tell about how truthful her love is deeply inside. This can be figured out where she perpetually expressed her feelings in various ways and how love influenced her life. And this is the line-by-line analysis and the figure of speech. The author asserts, I love thee to the depth and breadth and hate, or my soul can reach. Crucially, it is her soul that is expanding as a result of her love. If her love gives her grace, then she means that is bringing her closer to God.
Browning states that she loved her husband with the depth and breadth and hate my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. She is saying that she loves everything about him. Even when she cannot touch him or even see him, she still loves him as much as ever. The author states that her soul can reach the end of being an ideal grace. She is saying that her soul can stretch into some kind of metaphysical, spiritual region to find the ends which refer to one purpose of existence. I love thee to the level of everydays, most quiet need by sun and candlelight. Here, she compares the amount that she loves her partner to the strength with which men strive for what is right or just. Her love is unconditional and therefore free. It is a force for good, consciously given because it feels like the right thing to do. She doesn't want anything for this freely given love. It is a very humble kind of love, untainted by the ego. I love thee purely as they turn from praise.
Hi there, so this is Andrea speaking, and I'm gonna continue reading our analysis on this poem. So what we have here is I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. These lines of Sonnet 43 give an inner sense of feeling to her love. Just as man naturally strive to do what is good and what is right, she really loves. And in contrast, her childhood had been a happy one. And it's this that the one she refers to in the second half of line 10. The child's faith is pure and innocent and sees opportunity in everything. The analogy formed by the quote passion with the youth in Browning's Hot Grief is that she loved her husband as much with passion and force as she used to expand in morning colloquies. This conveys how much the author feels, the writer feels through this poem, and from this poem we know that the author wants to convey that her love is very sincere and wants to stay together with her lover until the death separate. So that will be all from our analysis in this poem. Hope you enjoy it and see you next time.